Welcome to True Crime Stories channel. Today, we delve into a tragic story from Fort Collins, Colorado, in May 2019. This episode covers the heartbreaking end of a beloved teacher, Dr. Vivian Severn, and the deadly consequences of her husband's jealousy. Dr. Vivian Severn, a 42-year-old English professor at a local college, was well known for her charismatic and engaging teaching style. Passionate about British interwar literature, she was a noted expert in the field. Vivian was highly regarded by her students and often invited them to her home to help with their assignments. She lived in Fort Collins with her husband, Robert Severn, who owned a successful chain of laundromats called Clean Spin, popular among local students. Despite their 15 years of marriage and many happy memories, Vivian and Robert's relationship had been strained recently due to rumors of her infidelities. Robert, 45, was known for his upright behavior and attention to detail. He was a reserved and private man, often keeping to himself outside of work. Vivian loved hiking in the nearby Rocky Mountain National Park and was an active leader of the Fort Collins Book Club. She had a wide circle of friends and was known for her lively personality and infectious laugh. At the time of her death, she was writing a 700-page book titled, From Brightest Head to Lehman, Interwar Literature's Role in Historical Erotic Fiction, combining her love for teaching and research. In the days leading up to her death, Vivian was busy grading final papers, preparing for the summer semester, and finishing her book. She was also planning a hiking trip with friends to celebrate the end of the school year. Her colleagues noticed her excitement and energy, looking forward to the break. She had recently posted on Facebook about a new book she was reading and shared photos from a hiking trip on Instagram. Vivian's students admired her dedication and passion, often visiting her office for extra help and freely discussing their ideas. However, beneath the surface of Vivian's promising life, tensions and secrets were simmering, ultimately leading to her tragic end. Her story reminds us how seemingly perfect lives can be shattered by jealousy and obsession. On the morning of May 15, 2019, as the sun rose over Fort Collins, Hank Murphy, a janitor at the college, began his routine cleaning rounds. Known for his friendly demeanor and dedication, Hank was a familiar face on campus. As he entered the English department, he noticed Dr. Vivian Severn's office door slightly ajar, which was unusual. Concerned, Hank knocked gently but received no response. He pushed the door open and was met with a sight that would haunt him forever. Vivian was slumped over her desk, motionless, with 2 visible gunshot wounds. Blood had pooled around her, and her papers and books were scattered across the desk, some stained with blood. The room was eerily silent. Hank's heart raced as he took in the scene. He stumbled backward, nearly dropping his cleaning supplies. After a few seconds of shock, he regained his composure and rushed to the nearest phone to call campus security. His hands trembled as he dialed the number, and his voice shook as he reported the discovery. Campus security immediately dispatched a team to Dr. Severn's office and called the local police. Within minutes, sirens wailed as they approached the campus. When the police arrived, they found Hank sitting on a bench outside the building, pale and wide-eyed with shock. The lead investigator approached him, noting his distress. Hank recounted his discovery, his voice still shaking. The news of Dr. Severn's death spread quickly across the campus. Students and faculty were in shock, unable to comprehend the tragedy that had befallen their beloved professor. Local news stations soon picked up the story, briefly noting her death on the nightly newscast. The discovery of Vivian's body marked the beginning of a complex investigation that would uncover dark secrets and lead to an unexpected conclusion. Detective Sarah Lynn Bryant, known for her keen eye and calm demeanor, led the team. The scene at Dr. Vivian Severn's office was shocking. Blood stains marked her desk, and papers were scattered everywhere. The room looked like a chaotic mix of a crime scene and a busy professor's office. The police secured the area, ensuring no one could enter or leave. They carefully photographed everything before touching anything. Detective Lynn Bryant and her team began looking for clues, starting with the bullet casings. They found 2 casings from a small-caliber handgun near Vivian's desk. The trajectory of the shots suggested that the killer was standing close to Vivian when she was shot. The investigators also collected items that might provide evidence, including Vivian's computer, cell phone, and several personal items from her desk. They hoped these items would offer clues about who might have wanted to harm Vivian. Forensic experts were called in to examine the blood stains and other physical evidence. They took samples for analysis back at the lab. The police also dusted for fingerprints, searching for any that didn't belong to Vivian or the janitor who found her. Meanwhile, other officers interviewed students, faculty, and staff, trying to piece together Vivian's last moments. Many people were shocked and confused, unable to believe that such a respected professor could be the victim of such a violent crime. Detective Lynn Bryant also reviewed security camera footage from around the campus, hoping to spot anyone suspicious entering or leaving the building around the time of the murder. The footage showed some people entering and exiting, but nothing immediately suspicious. The police knew they had a tough case ahead. Vivian was well liked, but the rumors about her personal life meant there could be many potential suspects. Detective Lynn Bryant and her team prepared to dig deeper into Vivian's life, relationships, and secrets, hoping that understanding more about her would lead them to the person responsible for her death. As the sun set over Fort Collins, the police wrapped up their initial investigation at the crime scene. They had gathered a lot of information, but many questions remained. The investigation was just beginning, and Detective Lynn Bryant knew they had a long journey ahead to seek justice for Dr. Vivian Severn. The investigation swiftly focused on Vivian Severn's husband, Robert Severn, as the primary suspect. Robert, aged 45, was a prosperous businessman who owned a chain of laundromats named Clean Spin, popular among students in Fort Collins. Despite his professional achievements, Robert was known to be reserved in his personal life. Friends and family had noticed his growing jealousy and obsession over rumors of Vivian's infidelities, which made him an immediate person of interest. On the evening of May 16, 2019, Robert was brought in for questioning at the Fort Collins police station. Detective Sarah Lynn Bryant led the interrogation. Robert appeared calm, but a tense atmosphere surrounded him. The detective began by asking Robert about his relationship with Vivian. He admitted that their marriage had been strained due to the rumors about her affairs with students. Robert provided an alibi, claiming he was at home the night of Vivian's murder, working on financial reports for Clean Spin. However, when asked if anyone could confirm his alibi, Robert struggled to provide a solid witness, raising more suspicions among the detectives. During the interrogation, Robert's demeanor shifted. He became defensive when the detectives pressed him about his whereabouts and his feelings regarding Vivian's alleged affairs. He repeatedly denied any involvement in her death, but his evasive answers only made the detectives more suspicious. The police also examined Robert's financial records and phone logs. They found several calls and texts between Robert and Vivian in the days leading up to her death, many of which were heated arguments about the rumors. This added to the detective's theory that Robert's jealousy and obsession might have driven him to commit the crime. Detective Lynn Bryant and her team continued to press Robert for more information, hoping to find inconsistencies in his story. They also searched the Severn home for any evidence that might link Robert to the crime. They found a handgun that matched the caliber of the bullets used in Vivian's murder. This was a significant piece of evidence. But it wasn't enough to make an arrest without further proof linking Robert to the actual shooting. While the police continued to investigate other leads, Robert remained a key suspect. His behavior, the strained marriage, and the discovery of the handgun all pointed towards him. However, the detectives knew they needed more concrete evidence to make an arrest. The investigation was far from over, and the police were determined to find justice for Dr. Vivian Severn. On May 18, 2019, a clear and sunny day in Fort Collins, a significant piece of evidence surfaced. Around 10 a.m., campus security found a flash drive in the parking lot near the English department. It had fallen out of a backpack left behind by one of Dr. Vivian Severn's students. The flash drive was quickly handed over to the police for investigation. Detective Sarah Lane Bryant and her team examined the contents of the flash drive. To their shock, they found dozens of videos of Dr. Vivian Severn engaging in sexual activities with students, both in her office and at her home. These videos confirmed the rumors about Vivian's infidelities and added a new layer to the case. It appeared that Vivian had been sexually involved with her entire class, way beyond professional boundaries. The police analyzed the videos for clues about the murder. They looked at timestamps, locations, and other details that might help identify who had access to the footage and who could have a motive for murder. The most recent video, recorded just hours before Vivian's death, showed her in a threesome with a pair of twins, Tanner and Lainey Taylor, who were two of Vivian's top students. The police also traced the origin of the videos. They discovered that the recordings had been made using hidden cameras in Vivian's office, as well as in her bedroom and bathroom at her house. The detectives expanded their investigation to include anyone who might have had access to Vivian's office and home. As the investigation continued, Detective Lane Bryant's team analyzed the digital data from the flash drive. They looked for fingerprints, checked the metadata of the files, and searched for any connections to other suspects. This new evidence complicated the case, revealing that Vivian's relationships were even more tangled than initially thought. The videos provided a clearer motive for the murder: jealousy and revenge. With the flash drive's discovery, the police had a critical piece of the puzzle. It suggested that the killer was someone who knew about Vivian's secret life and was deeply affected by it. The investigation was becoming more complex, but they were determined to follow every lead. The new evidence pointed the police towards a network of relationships and secrets that could unravel the mystery behind Vivian's tragic death. Hey, true crime case solvers! Interested in more real-life murder mysteries? Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Stay safe, true crime case solvers. After discovering the videos on the flash drive, the police turned their attention to Tanner and Lainey Taylor. Tanner and Lainey were 19-year-old twins and two of Dr. Vivian Severn's top students. Known for their charm and good looks, they were often seen together around campus. Several videos on the flash drive showed them both having sex with Vivian, raising suspicions about their involvement in her death. On May 19, 2019, the police brought Tanner and Lainey in for questioning. Detective Sarah Lane Bryant led the interrogation. Tanner and Lainey seemed nervous but cooperative. They admitted to having a sexual relationship with Vivian, often spending extra time in her office under the pretense of needing academic help because they had dyslexia. They also claimed that their sexual relationship with Vivian was necessary because, in Vivian's class, sexual performance made up 80% of the grade. The police asked the twins about their whereabouts on the night of Vivian's death. Tanner said he was studying at the library, while Lainey said she was at a friend's house. The police checked their alibis, but neither could be confirmed with certainty. This made the detectives more suspicious of the twins. The police also looked into the Taylors' backgrounds. They were well liked by their peers and had no history of violence or criminal activity. However, their close relationship with Vivian and the videos on the flash drive made them key suspects. Detective Lane Bryant and her team searched the twins' dorm room for any evidence linking them to the murder. They found several items belonging to Vivian, including a book and a scarf, raised further questions about their relationship, but no direct evidence linked the twins to the murder weapon or crime scene. The police analyzed the digital data from the flash drive to see if Tanner or Laney had accessed it, but the results were inconclusive as the flash drive had been used by multiple devices. This made it difficult to determine who had planted the hidden camera in Vivian's office. Throughout the investigation, Tanner and Laney maintained their innocence, expressing shock and sadness over Vivian's death and insisting they had nothing to do with it. Despite their denials, the police continued to view them as key suspects due to their close relationship with Vivian and their presence in the incriminating videos. As the investigation continued, Detective Sarah Bryant and her team knew they needed more concrete evidence to either prove or disprove the twins' involvement in Vivian's murder. The case was becoming more complicated, and the police were determined to follow every lead to find justice for Dr. Vivian Severn. With the investigation still open, the police turned their attention to Dr. Jonathan Brooks, a 50-year-old professor specializing in ancient Phoenician history, known for his strict demeanor and high academic standards. Despite his difficult reputation, his dedication to his field was undeniable. There were rumors of a professional rivalry between Jonathan and Vivian, and some even suggested they had once been romantically involved. On May 20, 2019, the police brought Dr. Brooks in for questioning. Detective Bryant led the interrogation. Dr. Brooks was calm and cooperative, though slightly irritated by the situation. He admitted to having a professional rivalry with Vivian but denied any romantic involvement, describing their relationship as strictly academic and very competitive. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of Vivian's murder, Dr. Brooks said he was at home grading papers and provided a list of students whose work he had graded, but this alibi was hard to verify. The police noted his irritation but continued to press him for more information. Dr. Brooks revealed that he and Vivian had been engaged in a strange competition to see who could have sex with more students during the school year. He said it was all in good fun and claimed he was serious about it but not enough to kill her. However, the police found this revelation extremely disturbing and considered it a possible motive if Vivian had won the competition shortly before her death. The police also searched Dr. Brooks' office and home for any evidence linking him to the murder. They found several personal items belonging to Vivian, including a pen and a notebook, but these items were not enough to directly link him to the crime. They did not find any weapons or anything that suggested he was involved in her death. As the investigation continued, the police looked into Dr. Brooks' digital activities. They examined his emails and social media for any signs of animosity towards Vivian, finding a few heated exchanges about academic matters but nothing that pointed to a motive for murder. Throughout the interrogation, Dr. Brooks maintained his innocence, expressing shock and sadness over Vivian's death and insisting he had nothing to do with it. Despite his cooperation, the police remained suspicious due to his rivalry with Vivian and the strange competition they had been engaged in. Detective Bryant and her team knew they needed more concrete evidence to either prove or disprove Dr. Brooks' involvement in Vivian's murder. The case was becoming increasingly complex, and the police were determined to follow every lead to find justice for Dr. Vivian Severn. On May 22, 2019, the police received a breakthrough in the case. They discovered new evidence that pointed directly to Robert Severn, Vivian's husband. The evidence came from a detailed analysis of the flash drive found earlier. Hidden in the metadata of one of the videos was a timestamp showing that Robert had accessed the files an hour and a half before Vivian's murder. Detective Bryant and her team pieced together the timeline. Robert's obsession with Vivian's affairs had reached a boiling point. He found out about the sexual relationships with her students and felt humiliated and betrayed. The night of the murder, he traveled to Vivian's office to confront her and, in a fit of rage, shot her twice with the handgun he took from their home. The police had enough evidence to arrest Robert. On the morning of May 23, 2019, they arrived at his house. Robert was in the living room, looking anxious. When the police told him he was under arrest for the murder of his wife, he did not resist. He seemed resigned, as if he had been expecting this moment. Robert's arrest shocked the community. Vivian's colleagues and students were stunned to learn that her husband was the killer. Many had suspected him, but the confirmation was still hard to accept. The Severn family was devastated. They had hoped that Robert was innocent, and were now grappling with the reality of his actions. During the interrogation, Robert confessed to the crime. He explained how he had been driven into madness by Vivian's betrayals. He couldn't stand the thought of her having sex with her students, and in a moment of uncontrollable anger, he killed her. Robert's confession was detailed and left no doubt about his guilt. Vivian's family had mixed reactions to Robert's arrest. They were relieved that the killer had been caught, but the pain of losing Vivian was still fresh. They struggled with the idea that someone so close to her could have committed such a horrific act. The community of Fort Collins also reacted with a mix of relief and sadness. Many people gathered to support Vivian's family during this difficult time. The police wrapped up the investigation, having found the murderer. They had followed every lead and piece of evidence to bring justice for Dr. Vivian Severn. The case was closed, but the impact of the tragedy would linger in the hearts of those who knew her. As Robert awaited trial, the town of Fort Collins began to heal. The community came together to remember Vivian's contributions and the positive impact she had on her students and colleagues. Her legacy would live on even as they dealt with the painful truth about her death. In January 2022, delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic, the trial of Robert Severn finally began at the Larimer County Courthouse in Fort Collins, Colorado. The courtroom was packed with media, family members, and curious locals. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Tabitha Quasimodo, known for her meticulous approach and determination to seek justice. Quasimodo presented a strong case against Robert, detailing his motive and opportunity. Quasimodo argued that Robert's jealousy and obsession with Vivian's infidelities drove him to commit the crime, supported by digital evidence connecting him to Vivian's murder. Multiple witnesses, including detectives and experts explaining metadata from the flash drive, were called to the stand. The prosecution depicted Robert as a man pushed to his breaking point by his wife's actions. Robert's defense was handled by his attorney, Lisa Martin, a 38-year-old known for being tough and clever. She contended that Robert had been under immense emotional stress and had not acted with premeditation. Martin attempted to cast doubt on the digital evidence's reliability and suggested it could have been planted to frame Robert. Vivian's family watched the trial with heavy hearts, torn between their love for Robert and their desire for justice for Vivian. The emotional toll was evident as they listened to the graphic details and arguments from both sides. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with intense media coverage and daily updates in local newspapers and on news channels like NBC and CNN. On February 4, 2022, the jury reached a verdict. The courtroom was silent as the foreperson announced that Robert Severn was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict brought mixed feelings to Vivian's family. They were relieved that justice had been served but devastated by the loss of both Vivian and Robert. The Fort Collins community felt a sense of closure, recognizing the trial had unveiled deep complexities and dark secrets behind Vivian's seemingly perfect life. The case sparked discussions about relationships, mental health, and individual pressures in both personal and professional spheres. In the weeks following the verdict, Vivian's friends and colleagues held a memorial service to honor her memory, highlighting her contributions to the academic community and her positive impact on her students. The service reminded everyone of the bright, dedicated person she was despite the tragic circumstances of her death. As Robert began his life sentence, the Severin family struggled to move forward, finding some peace in knowing that justice had been served for Vivian. After his sentencing, life slowly returned to normal in Fort Collins. The community, shaken by the tragic events, started to heal. Vivian's family faced the difficult task of moving on without her, honoring her memory by establishing a scholarship fund for literature students, ensuring her legacy lived on. Vivian's colleagues at the university found it challenging to return to their routines. Many attended counseling sessions to cope with the loss and the shocking revelations of the case. The English department, where Vivian had taught, dedicated a reading room in her name and worked to finish and publish her book on interwar literature's role in historical erotic fiction. Robert Severin served his life sentence in the Colorado State Penitentiary, spending his days in solitary confinement reflecting on his actions. Media coverage of the trial and his imprisonment gradually diminished. His friends and remaining family members visited him occasionally, but these visits became less frequent over time. Tanner and Lainey Taylor, the students involved in the scandal, struggled with the trial's aftermath, facing backlash from peers and the community. They tried to continue their studies, receiving counseling to help them deal with the trauma and scrutiny. Over time, they managed to rebuild their lives, though the events left a lasting impact. Dr. Jonathan Brooks, initially a suspect, returned to teaching, though his reputation had suffered. He focused on his work, distancing himself from the scandal as much as possible. His colleagues were supportive, but the shadow of the events lingered. Detective Sarah Len Bryant and her team were commended for solving the case, continuing to serve Fort Collins with even greater care and precision. The department implemented new training programs to handle sensitive cases involving personal relationships and digital evidence better. The Fort Collins community, though scarred by the events, grew closer. People became more aware of the pressures and mental health issues those around them faced. Local organizations and schools started offering more support services to prevent future tragedies. The tragic death of Dr. Vivian Severin revealed a complex web of secrets and lies driven by jealousy and obsession. Join us next time on True Crime Case Files as we uncover more stories of lives forever changed by crime. Thank you for listening.